I'd like to go through a monopsony employer. Today we're going to look at why the AC and the MC look the way they do in a monopsony. So 2 things to remember. A monopsony has to pay everyone the same wage. And what this means is hiring a new worker is going to involve 1, giving a pay rise to all previous employees that were paid less than the wage right now. The second thing to remember is to hire a new person, you also need to pay the wages of the new person. So the wages paid to the new employee. And you're going to see that those 2 things are what cause your MC to be higher than your AC, but let's take a look. So here I have a graph showing the supply curve in this monopsony, and we have up to 6 employees. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And let's go dot by dot. So the first employee was willing to work at 10. So that's what their supply curve shows. I'm just going to call it the supply here, but that's what they're willing and able to work. So I'm going to skip worker 0, but worker 1 is willing to work at wage 10. So if the monopsony wants to hire that first worker, in terms of giving a pay rise, they don't need to. There's nobody to give them a pay rise. There's no previous workers to raise the wages. But they will need to pay the new employee. So the new employee will need to be paid 10. And that way, place that as 0, that way the cost of hiring that new employee, cost of the new employee in total is the sum of these 2 things, which is going to be 10. So let's repeat for worker number 2. Worker number 2 is willing and able to work at wage 20. If the company wants 2 employees, it's got a problem. The second employee wants to work at 20, so the second person will definitely need to be paid 20. But there was another person who got hired at 10. And rule number 1 says the first worker needs to be also paid 20. So we're going to have to give that first worker a pay rise of £10. So that pay rise is the £20 that's being offered now, minus the £10 that they're being offered before. And that means the cost of hiring that new person is actually £10 of the pay rise to the previous worker, plus £20 to the new worker, which means the cost to the monopsony is actually 30. So let's plot that here. That's going to be where my MC will cut through. And let's repeat for the third worker. Third worker is willing to work at 30. To hire the third worker, we will need to pay them 30 because that's what they're willing and able to work at. But then there are 2 previous workers who have been hired at £20. We've got 2 workers and their wage is 20, but now the wage is 30. So we need to give them a pay rise of 10. We're going to give 2 workers a pay rise of 10, and that's going to mean that the cost of hiring that third worker is a £30 to the new worker, but the £10 of a pay rise to the other 2 workers too. So it actually ends up costing the firm £50 to hire that third worker, which is that. And let's repeat it one more time for that fourth worker. For that fourth worker, they are willing and able to work at 40. To hire them, the firm is going to have to pay them 40. And they're going to have to also give 3 workers that have been hired before a pay rise. Right now, these 3 workers are working at 30. but the fourth worker is being employed at 40. So the company needs to give them a £10 pay rise. £10 pay rise for 3 workers. So the cost of actually hiring that fourth person has come up to 30 plus 40, which is 70, which is, I think, of my chart. Yeah, just a little bit over here. If we kind of draw a line through this, that is the marginal cost of hiring labor in a monopsony. It's really exciting. It's higher than your supply curve always. So that explains that one. The MC is higher because it has to pay all the previous workers more, and it has to pay the wage to the new employee. For the second bit, for the supply curve, I'm sure you've seen the supply curve is equal to the average cost. So let's take a look at why that is. To work out an average cost of labor, the equation is the total cost of labor divided by how many people you've employed. So divided by the employees. Right now I don't have the total cost of labor, so I need to calculate it. To calculate the total cost of labor, I just need to add up the cost of hiring each new worker. So let's work out the total cost with one worker. The cost of hiring the first worker was 10, so my total cost right now is 10. Hiring the second worker added 30 to my costs, so it literally added 30 to my costs, so the total costs are now 40. Hiring that third worker added 50 to costs, so costs are now 90. And hiring the fourth worker has added 70 to costs, and that means total costs are now 160. Which means now we have everything to work out the average cost of labor. I've got the total cost and I know the number of employees. So let's work out the average cost of labor line by line. So I'm going to do the total cost, which is 10. And I'm going to divide that by the number of employees, which is 1. And that gives me 10. Next line, total cost is 40. Employees are 2. Giving me an average cost of 20. And let's plot this. The first worker, 10. The second worker, 20. And the next one is 90 divided by 30, which is, divided by 3, which is 30. So that would be here. And the fourth worker is 160. That's the total cost divided by 4 employees, giving you an average cost of 40. And then I can draw a kind of a line through this. Try and draw a line through this. And you will see that the supply curve is actually in the same location as the average cost curve line for a monopsony. And that's the conclusion. The marginal cost curve is higher than the average cost curve for a monopsony, and both those curves are because of these 2 reasons: that the monopsony has to pay all the previous workers the pay rise that's being offered to the new employee. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Please let me know at the bottom if you have any other suggestions for any other videos, if you like this video, if you have any comments, if you like the style. And thank you very much. Bye.